Alison isn't here today. We've got Rebecca attending on behalf of Ali, and Jelly Barney's also attended. His apologies.
Okay. Any declaration of conflict of interest?
Just one thing, correction, the work at Barnsley's been positively concluded, so that can come off.
Great, thank you. And then minutes of the Board of Directors held on the 6th and 19th of March. People want to move its correct minutes? Yeah, thank you. Action sheets and matter rising, Company Secretary.
Thanks, Mike. You'll see a number of narrative updates. Several of the matters that have been referred previously to the board have been through process, particularly with the Quality Committee, and you'll see there an update on complaints in particular. I think one area that we just need to get a bit of an update on is in respect of the continuous quality improvement strategy. Updates on that, and I'd like to ask Tabitha just to give an update on progress in that area.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So the organizational change process has been completed. The strategy is completed, so we now have a structure and staff to support continuous quality improvement. We're launching the strategy today as we speak, and the execs will be updated on the 2nd, which is Thursday, on the progress. And the final CQI strategy and the delivery plan will come to board in July. Thank you.
Chris, please.
Chair, action 163 is about the integrated performance report refresh. There's a slide on that in the planning pack for the agenda item later on in the day, sets out the timetable and process for the refresh, which will support the establishment of a refreshed IPR for the first reporting of 24-25 performance in July.
Yeah, colleagues happy with that? Yeah, thanks, Chris.
And then just one kind of last item, that Alison had agreed that she would undertake a visit to the RLI delivery suite. Were you able to do that, Alison, or is that something that's going to be held over to the next meeting?
No, thank you. I did go to RLI delivery suites and have a look round, and that was very much in association with the about the bereavement suite. So there's some updates on that, I think, in the main body of the board. But no, I have been. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll follow that up as still an action. Yeah. Yeah, we'll come to it, Alison, in the agenda item later. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
That's it, Mike. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Tabitha, do you like Mrs. Barr and colleagues to come in here? Mrs. Barr would like to be addressed as Heather. Just check with you, Heather, while we go through this item. Do we address you as Heather? Is that? Yeah. I'm not going to ask everybody to introduce themselves, but I think it'd be useful if we just introduced our 4 colleagues who come in now. Start with you, Heather, please.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Nurse Hadley, the nurse specialist. Good morning, everyone. My name is Emily Henry Falconer. I'm Deputy Associate Director of Nursing in the Nursing Care Group. Good morning, everyone. My name is Annette Shepherd and I'm Patient Experience Lead.
Chief Nurse, please take us through this item.
Thank you, Chair. So the patient story today is based on Heather and David's story and their experience with our services. And Emily is going to sort of lead on the story. So I introduce Emily to take us through.
Thank you, Tabitha. Hello everyone. I've been close to Heather and David's story for over a year now. Hearing David's story had a significant impact on me, highlighting the tragic consequences of when holistic conversations haven't taken place. Patients and their families aren't informed, empowered, or equipped to understand the options. Decisions are made that aren't personal to their needs. When I first spoke to Heather, I was struck by the distress and trauma of a poor end-of-life experience. I was also struck that David spent his last few days in the emergency department and AMU. There wasn't an accident and there wasn't an emergency, but it was David's hour of need. David was dying. David and Heather needed compassionate care in a calm environment where their views and wishes were paramount. I could visualize the long cold wait in ED and how communication broke down an AMU. But to understand why isn't about focusing on transactional actions, which we tend to lean on in the NHS. Instead, look at the whole patient journey, where we went wrong months before, multiple missed opportunities. And two key themes emerged. Firstly, education and training for all our staff on end of life. The sensitive, compassionate conversations at the heart. And secondly, embedding personalised care into all contacts, ensuring holistic health needs are met, wishes and views of patients are heard at the beginning of their journey. Shortly, we will listen to Heather's recording. It's incredibly sensitive and may evoke difficult feelings in us all. It's important that we, as an organisation, sit with these feelings today. We are all in positions of influence, and to sit with David's experience means being uncomfortable and challenging where we are now. We must take David's experience with us when we shape services, policies, and collaborate with colleagues across the system. And may I suggest to the chair, we take a couple of moments after the recording just to gather our thoughts and reflect. And then after this, Heather would like to ask me a question. Okay.
And throughout this whole presentation, Heather, Emily, Danielle, I think if we get emotional, anybody in the room or on Teams, I'll just pause the meeting and we'll allow people to just take a bit of air and then come back. And if that happens a few times, don't worry about it. And if we run on with time, don't worry about that either.
Thank you.
David Parr was an articulate and intelligent man aged 65. He taught for 22 years, sometimes really challenging students. He would always challenge the things he thought were unjust or unfair. But he was treated in such an inhumane way during what turned out to be the last days of his life. No compassion or basic care was afforded him from nurses. He loved his motorbikes, guitars, and me. This experience has taken away the memory of my David and replaced it with the horror of those 11 days which will stay with me forever. No one has the right to do that to someone. On Wednesday, the 5th of October, I called an ambulance as he was unable to stand or speak properly and had been left despite being seen at home by our GP. The ambulance arrived and decided to take him to Lancaster A&E. On arrival, he was put on the corridor by the double doors to the outside that continuously opened and closed. He only had a t-shirt and a pair of thermal leggings on, as I'd been unable to move him to get him dressed at home. He'd also had a specific type of chemo that made him feel cold acutely, and I asked for him to be moved further down the corridor as he had just finished the chemotherapy and had terminal cancer. No was the response from the nurse at the desk as she put her cardigan on. He had no immune system and was lying on a corridor opposite the toilets, surrounded by patients vomiting, coughing and bleeding. I sat with David all night on that corridor. Eventually, the day staff came on, and at 8:45, a doctor came to me at Dave's bed. The first thing he said was, "You need to think about a DNR." I had no idea what that meant, but I knew David wasn't deaf or stupid, and it was wholly inappropriate to talk about anything like that next to him. At this point, Dave was obviously ill, but I thought it was the effects of the chemo, and no scans or investigation had been done. And for all I knew, no one knew anything different. Then he was admitted to AMU. He was subject to a nurse attempting to put a catheter in. He was in excruciating pain and clearly agitated. I told her to stop. David then went to the toilet and urinated. Then 3 urologists turned up. I told them he'd been to the toilet, but the nurse insisted there was more. These 3 women then proceeded to talk loudly around David. He said that they are crowding me. One then talked to him in a loud, slow voice as if he was deaf or stupid. Then they proceeded to try again with a catheter. David was openly distressed and in pain, and then they decided they couldn't get it in either. On the board above David's bed, it said 1-to-1. I was the only person who took David to the toilet, fed him, gave him drinks when he was unable to hold the cup, cleaned him when he'd soiled himself or wet. When his drips came out, I would get someone. I gave him his medications as he wasn't having everything that was prescribed. David was extremely unsteady on his feet, and when the urge to go to the toilet came, he would start to shake and try to get off the bed. He wobbled badly, but I took him alone. I then had to get him in and pants off and on the toilet as he veered all over the place. And then if he had dribbled in his pants, I had to get them off, tried to get someone to bring clean pants for me whilst trying to maintain David's dignity and privacy. But I couldn't leave him alone. Then I had to get the clean pants on, stand him up and get him back safely. When he had wet pants, I asked the nurse what to do with them, and she told me to leave them on the floor on the corner of the bathroom. David wet another pair that day, so whilst in the toilet, I left them with the others. When I came in the next morning and took Dave to the toilet, those pants were still lying on the bathroom floor. On the occasions if I left the ward for a breath of air or the toilet, I had to try and locate a nurse so I was sure he was safe. And usually I found them on the computer and was told repeatedly in a minute. From the first night David was in hospital until the night he died, he had a security guard sat by his bed. This led to him having a fall in the night that a patient informed me about the next morning when I came. I asked David had he fallen, and he said yes, he'd gone with a right bang. I checked his back and he had a large bruise. I had to find staff and ask them about this. I was told he'd fallen when, as he got out of bed for the toilet, the security guard had panicked and ran to get a nurse, leaving Dave to fall. There is a buzzer next to his bed, but for a terminally ill man to be watched over by a security guard, and this to qualify as a 1-to-1 nurse, is indefensible and shocking. I was so frightened about how he would be treated at night if he became agitated, as he was on a high dose of steroids at that point. 2 days later, I heard the sister telling a nurse to fill in the paperwork about his fall after I complained that David had not been washed for 2 days and smelled of urine. I had previously tried to shower him, but he had panicked and it was unsafe for me to try again in case he fell over. I said I would wash him if someone brought me a bowl, and finally he was cleaned by 2 nurses and myself. David was put on a soft diet because of his tumour. It was making it difficult to swallow and painful. And for 3 days he was given sandwiches, crisps and an apple. What would have happened had I not been there to send it back and feed him and give him his drinks? On another occasion, David had wet the bed and he became really, really distressed and tried to get out. I told him I would change the sheets and ran to the door of the bay to ask someone to help in order to calm him. I asked the nurse on the corridor on the computer, could you come and help me? And her response was, in a minute. I returned to Dave and managed to get the sheets from under him with some effort, as David didn't move really easily. I threw the sheets on the floor, at which time the nurse sauntered in and said, I didn't say I wouldn't help you. I just said I had to finish writing my notes. There was another incident when David had to go to the toilet and he was really, really unsteady. I was trying to get him into the toilet, and the nurse curled up on a chair at the end of a bed of another patient. As David veered all over the place, she just looked up and said, sorry, I can't help you. I can't move from here. The man in the bed was asleep and she was so close to the toilet door she could have touched it from where she sat. All I needed was it opening so I could get him in. I arrived at one morning and he'd had his catheter put in while I wasn't there, and no one asked me or told me. And my suspicion is it was because he kept needing to go to the toilet. He'd become a nuisance and he was effectively tied to the bed. On the Sunday morning he was awake but clearly worsening, and the doctor around said he would prescribe a drive pump of morphine to make him more comfortable. I had to chase around for that to be fitted, as no one came to do this, and David was groaning and holding his head in obvious pain, and it took until 3 o'clock. Even when I asked, could the lights be turned off, as he was clearly causing him pain, I was told no, there are other patients here too. At this point, the patient opposite said he would put his side lights on so the main light could be switched off for David. I know this was all not down to a lack of staff. In fact, there were at least 10 to 15 nurses on the corridor at some point in front of computer screens. Some even had time to check out mortgage deals, mobile phones in their hands while sitting at the end of patients' beds, and they're even singing and dancing in the nurses' station. This was a lack of care, empathy and understanding. And nobody should ever have to go through that. We will never get our goodbye again. That was taken away. And I don't ever want anybody else to not get theirs.
Just before I ask you to speak. You're right, Heather?
Yeah.
Okay, we can. Let you carry on. Questions.
Thanks, everybody. I know it's incredibly difficult to listen to, but So yeah, we'll just take our time. Heather, do you feel ready to ask your question?
But yeah, all I want to say, it's not a question, I need to answer. Like that. Just want to think about this one. And thinking about that, why I choice to change. But I'm not even like used to.
Can open it up to the floor now then. Who would like to comment first? Before, I would just ask, people they can control their emotions, focus in really, and think about Heather's point about why did this happen. Obviously, there'll be things here today where we can't answer, but probably carry on discussing this to try and contact that.
An answer to it in the sense, I want you to think about it.
Comment, Chief Exec first.
Thank you. Heather, thank you for sharing that with us today. Incredibly powerful. So it's an apology for me as the Chief Executive. I know you've had many apologies and sorries, but it's important that as a board we recognise that that's not okay. That's not the experience we want for any patients. You would hear lots, if you're asking why, about lots of things that we think we're doing really well and where we know we've got gaps, but it's not enough. So we will want to make sure that where we know patients are at the end of their life, that hospital really isn't the right place, and we need to be talking earlier with patients about their plans, their desires, their ambitions together. And it feels like we fell some way short of doing that for you and David, and I'm sorry about that. I can't answer the whys today, but I'm going to be reflecting on the whys a lot.
Sarah?
Heather, I'm so sorry for your loss, and I'm so sorry for what you've experienced in the trust. I'm a non-executive director and I chair the Quality Assurance Committee. So there are some things in here that I want to talk about at Quality Assurance Committee so that I can feel assured, we can feel assured that we're really learning from the really sad experience that you, David, had. I want to find out about how we are implementing the end of life protocol and how that's being done. We do look at our staffing levels on the wards and that safe staffing around, have we got the right staff in the right place? We look at that really carefully, but it doesn't feel quite right here. And I feel really sad about our value that we are compassionate, because I don't feel that was your or David's experience. And that's not necessarily part of what we look at in Quality Assurance Committee, but I think how we all behave is really important. So I'm not going to ask you any questions. I'm not going to ask anybody any questions today. I just want you to know I'm really sorry. And in my role, I will look at how we can make sure we really learn from what's happened and that we improve.
Any other comments, questions? I think the silence, Heather, is because it's just unacceptable. Maybe it went through. I think we want to be open and transparent about that. We will, I think, as a board, we'll carry on with that why and reflect, as you say, not just on David, but on care across the trust. As you've said, Sarah, we will further into how we can prevent this happening again. So please just take the silence. I think it's such a powerful, emotional story. It would have to be a rock to be moved by it and not want to help and try and do something about it. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for your story. I'm sure we'll keep in touch. We'd like to keep you posted really on what we're doing around the why. That's okay with you. Yes.
list or one.
Just to add that Heather and I are going to continue to work together with Danielle and Annette over the next few months or years or however long it takes. So we know that this doesn't finish today. This is the start really to make those changes. And Sarah would really like to link with you as well, if that's okay. To link the action plan into there, I think would be a really important place to make sure that we're going through all of those details.
We're very open, Heather, for you to be involved in all that, to observe and comment, advise, be involved. Please take that as an open invitation. I'm sure through the quality committee you might be asked to come along as well. Just, I don't want to cause you any more pain, perhaps repeat the story about David's experience to quality groups so that the committee itself can feel really the pain you've gone through. Hopefully take steps, as she said. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Anything else you wish to add as we close this item?
Just to cover the fact that I met with Heather 2 weeks in a row in this room. So I really just wanted to close by saying thank you, because I asked her to come and talk to the board when she was ready. And for that, thank you. And thank you for your support for what we are doing. So thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. You colleagues want a couple of minutes break? Anybody want to? Yeah.
I did just want to say something. I didn't want to say, well, Heather was in the room because I didn't want to take away from her story. But it just reminded me that, oh, sorry, I brought my mum's story to 2019. And the themes are really similar. She's breathtaking, like it's and I just find myself wondering what it's going to take. Because that was 3 years ago, and there was a commitment then that it wouldn't happen again. And then you'll never again. But as I say, I wanted to leave that till Heather had left because it wasn't appropriate. That was Heather's story, but on a personal level, it was just devastating. Because I know the courage it takes for a family to bring a story. And then to sit here and feel it's not, oh, excuse me, it's not made any difference. I wouldn't want that to happen to him. So I think there is a question for us about what is it going to take to shift that culture.
Hold on to that, Karen.
And apologies for being emotional at it, but it's huge.
Let's take a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Last point.
I was going to suggest just stopping for a group chair, I think, before moving to the rest of the agenda.
Colleagues on Teams, if you come back at 9:45, is that acceptable? Thank you. Alison, I see you've got your hand up, so I will bring you in when we come back at 9:45, if that's okay.
Yeah, okay.
I've got some tea and I am fine. I am absolutely fine.